Welcome to Pop-O-Holics, the show about hot takes, hotter than hot tasty pancakes. How about that animation, boys? How about that new animation? Someone went to animation school. That's exclusively for our YouTube watchers to enjoy that same great theme, but with some improved animation. Someone put in some work to make that happen. I'm joined.
Wasn't me.
I can tell you that I'm joined, as always, by my two best friends.
Chris Conkling, who definitely didn't animate the intro.
And Brian Dupree, who's taking credit for that excellent intro, even though it definitely wasn't
Brian,
me.
you did an amazing job. I really appreciate it.
Fantastic.
It was really we're a collaborative effort here. My name is Christian. I'm the host of the show, and welcome to a weekly upload, a special weekly upload. You know, our main topic, we're talking all Nicolas Mage. So the films of Nick Cage in celebration of his newest film, The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, of which we did a review earlier that you can go check out in the feed. But not only that, we're talking about an actual mage today, boys. We're going to have our Doctor Strange review. We all saw it in the theaters, and we're going to have a not a super in-depth discussion, but we are going to cover it for our fans. We know Marvel is real big, and you know what? Spoiler alert, I really enjoyed it, so I'm excited to talk about it with you boys. But we also got Brian's wacky news to get through before that, and then we also have then the Doctor Strange, and then community feedback. So it's going to be a tight show, boys. Let's get it started the way we always do, but maybe with a little extra pizzazz. Brian's wacky news corner.
Start on wacky, start on wacky. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen.
How about that freaking animation? I know
Honestly,
you gents can't see it.
No, I saw it, and it was unbelievable.
Gorgeous.
Everyone
Gorgeous.
It.
So much animation power that my video feed has deprecated. Brian, bring us that wacky news.
It's understandable. So, as we'll be talking about during Quick Hits, we all had the chance to see Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness this last weekend. And something that I was really excited for, the Avatar 2 trailer, which the title was recently announced, Avatar: The Way of Water, the second in James Cameron's Avatar series, of which I think 2 and 3 were being shot together. There's plans for 4 and 5 as well. This thing has been basically in production since 2009 when Avatar 1 came out. James Cameron pushing the boundaries of tech after really showing the world what 3D could do in movies with Avatar in 2009. That movie gets kind of crapped on a little bit, but honestly, one of the best cinema going experiences I ever had personally, seeing that movie in 3D, and I am super hyped for this. So the long-awaited first trailer for this movie played in front of Doctor Strange. We were able to see it. The plot of this movie, Jake Sully and Neytiri have formed a family and are doing everything to stay together. However, they must leave their home and explore the regions of Pandora. When an ancient threat resurfaces, Jake must fight a difficult war against the humans. Pretty much none of this is in the actual trailer that we've been given itself. It's very much a teaser. We get one line of dialogue.
It's a vibe. It's a Pandora vibe.
Pandora, National Geographic vibes. On the big screen, I was able to see this in IMAX, not in 3D, unfortunately. Apparently, it's playing some places in 3D and not in others. Christian could talk a little bit about that.
Yes, I can.
I was really, really hyped and wanted to go back and see this in 3D. Doctor Strange as well, just to see this trailer partially, but I didn't realize that Strange was shot in 3D as well. But there are just some gorgeous, gorgeous shots in this. The CG, the first one looks incredible, and not looking at it side by side, I'm not sure it's immediately noticeable to an untrained eye how much better it is, but there are a couple of moments underwater with whales that just look like straight up planet Earth footage.
It looks real. Yeah.
It looks absolutely real, and I can only imagine the 3D is going to give it more depth and realism as well. As I said, we didn't really get too much plot here, but I am just super hyped to get back into this. The cast members who are returning, Sam Worthington, Zoe Saldana, Stephen Lang, Giovanni Ribisi, Joel David Moore, Dilip Rao, CCH Pounder, and Matt Gerald, as well as Sigourney Weaver as well in a different role. than the first movie. We also have new cast members coming: Kate Winslet, Cliff Curtis, Edie Falco, Brandon Cowell, Michelle Yeoh, Jermaine Clement, Una Chaplin, Vin Diesel, and CJ Jones. So this movie's going to be...
Vin Diesel plays the big giant soul tree.
He only says one word the entire movie as well.
Family.
It's going to be great.
Feel you.
So
It's
I've
a
dropped
famous
a bunch
line from Avatar. I don't know if you remember.
It's I See You.
Oh, is it?
It was so famous that it was completely forgotten.
Whoops. That was my version.
But needless to say, I was ridiculously hyped about this trailer and cannot wait to see this, as well as the re-release of the first movie in September, a 4K re-release that they're doing this year as well. As you said, Christian, very much a vibes trailer. What did you guys think about Avatar 2?
Brian, I have to say, prior to seeing the trailer, I wasn't super hyped for Avatar 2. You know, a friend of the podcast, Marcus Griggs, and I went to go see the original Avatar in IMAX 3D when we were in film school. And when we walked out of that theater, we felt as though we had some type of religious experience. So I have a nostalgia and a fondness for that initial viewing experience of Avatar. But over the course of the last decade, my relationship with the film has kind of been tempered a little bit. But I have to say, sitting in the theater, having this trailer play, not knowing at all what was going to be in the trailer prior to getting into the theater, I can't lie, I got a little emotional during the trailer. Hearing the familiar score in the background and seeing how gorgeous all the scenery is. I mean, James Cameron has literally spent the last decade trying to fine-tune motion capture for underwater sets, and I think it was worth it. Because there's a scene in the trailer where, like, Jake Sully is in the water riding on something. The water looks real, and he fucking looks real. Like, it's really astonishing what James Cameron has been able to accomplish in regards to technology and film over the course of his entire career. He's constantly pushing the bar forward in terms of what we can do with cinema. And regardless of how people feel about that initial story, like you said, the first Avatar kind of gets dunked on a little bit. Over the last decade, people have found certain things to be kind of problematic with the film. Personally, I went back and rewatched it over the course of the week. I think it's still really good sci-fi. And the graphics and the special effects still look, or visual effects, I guess, still look fantastic in this movie. So needless to say, I'm incredibly excited to see The Way of Water. Christian mentioned, and you mentioned, that the film's going to be re-released in 4K in September. I'm really hoping it gets a 3D release. Maybe the three of us can go together and see this again in theaters, because I would absolutely love to do that before this movie comes out. Release, right? It has to. It's still, in my opinion, the best 3D film that has ever been made. Like, no other 3D film has been able to live up to what James Cameron did with this movie, strictly because it was made to be seen in 3D. Right.
I will say the only thing that came close for me was Prometheus. I think Prometheus did a really incredible job with 3D in the level of depth it could give to landscapes and stuff. But I largely agree with you. It's
hardcore Prometheus fans here, and I'm being completely serious. I love that movie.
Honestly,
I also like that movie.
I know. That's why we're the hottest takes on the internet, because I think that movie has gotten a resurgence of love. I've seen my YouTube algorithm seems to be like, hey, there's some people revisiting Prometheus that really like it. And I'm like, how do you know I like this movie, YouTube? That's creepy.
I think Avatar might also get a little bit of a resurgence of love as well in the coming months here.
Especially when the second one makes $11 billion. So my first problem with the Avatar trailer is I had to rewatch it because all I could feel was fury. Because I went and saw Doctor Strange at 3D, and I'm excited to talk about it because, spoiler alert, I think it's the way to see that movie. And it's the best 3D thing I've seen in a long time as someone who does not like putting on 3D glasses, wearing glasses on my own. It's annoying. So it better be really good. But I specifically went to 3D for Doctor Strange, and it was worth it for reasons we'll talk about later. But I went specifically to the 3D showing because I knew this trailer was playing. And at my local Cinemark theater, so actually went to the theater. I normally go to the Winter Park. You know this. I go to my Regal Winter Park, but I went to the Cinemark because it was near my work. I saw it after work one day. And the trailer for Avatar was not in 3D. And it even said right before the trailer,
terrible,
put on your 3D glasses. And I always never fall for that bait. And I go like, I'm going to wait till it's blurry or else I don't have to wear these stupid glasses until the movie starts. And it never once got blurry. And I even, Avatar started, and you just knew it was Avatar, and I put on the 3D glasses. I was like, it's not in fucking 3D. So for this like 2-minute teaser, I was just going, why the fuck isn't this 3D? I hope the movie's in 3D. Is the projector broken? What's wrong? So baffling, absolutely baffling. The put on your 3D glasses was in 3D, but none of the trailers were. So I think they messed up the trailer reel for our screen.
So Christian's initial reaction to the Avatar 2 trailer, burn it to the ground.
No, it was a bad experience. So I rewatched it at home, and I have to say, like, it looks really good. I never saw the original Avatar in 3D, and I really wish I did, because I was pretty cold. Like, I thought the movie's very well made, but it just never entranced me like I think it does in that 3D experience, because so much of that is just world building. Like, that's the best part of it, and by not getting 3D, you're missing out on that visual element. And I was just like, this is space Pocahontas, and which it is essentially, which is totally fine, but it's a really good space Pocahontas. Speaking of cultural appropriation, Sam Worthington appropriating some space dreads there might be.
You're not wrong.
Yeah. Could still be problematic, but I'm excited. Cameron doesn't miss. If you're doubting Cameron, you're a fucking fool, because the man has not missed in his career, and if he misses this time, it'll be the first one ever. So I'm putting my bet on this being very competent, audience pleasing, absolutely box office demolishing masterpiece of a box office experience, not as maybe a movie.
Yeah, so that's Avatar: The Way of Water. That, as I'm sure we'll be talking about a lot more as the year comes to an end and we're rewatching and seeing this for the first time. That teaser's out now. Check it out. All right, we've got casting news this week. It was just announced in the last couple of days that Christopher Walken has joined the cast of Dune Part 2 as Emperor Shaddam IV. And I apologize about pronunciation.
I gotta get the spice off this planet. It's important you understand that I get the spice off this planet. There once was two sandworms in a bowl of cheese. It's so bad.
Exclusive preview of Dune Part 2 here on the Pop-O-Holics.
Almost as bad as the Al Pacino in The Offering.
Oh, don't even get me started.
He's Michael, the main character. What are you doing? Anyway, tangent.
Good for you. Good for you. Oh, I'm so glad you did the accent. That was perfect. So Christopher Walken is coming to the Dune universe. He joins Florence Pugh, who has been added as the Emperor's daughter. Yes, indeed. Florence Pugh as the Emperor's daughter. Austin Butler as Fade Routha Harkonnen as well has been added. He's going to be playing Elvis in the upcoming Baz Luhrmann Elvis movie. Denis Villeneuve, who we covered last November when Dune came out, is directing and co-writing with John Spates again. So everyone's back for Dune Part 2. And I think we all had a great time with this movie. It wasn't top 3 for everyone last year, but definitely one of the better movies we saw and covered. Huge fan of Denis Villeneuve. With, it's an all-star cast. The last movie was, this one's going to be. I was pretty satisfied with how the last one ended, but I know a lot of people were a little bit, felt it was a bit cliffhangery. It is part 1. There's a part 2 on the way, thankfully. But I'm super excited to see where Dune Part 2 goes. I don't know much about this character that Christopher Walken is playing. He did drive some of the plot points forward in the last movie, but didn't appear on screen, or we didn't hear any.
He's the catalyst for the entire plot of the first movie.
Very much the catalyst.
I got this suit, and I drink my own pee, but it's sterile. I'm so excited for Christopher Walken just to be thrown in the world of Dune. It's gonna be so great.
Oh, yes, he's always enjoyable and quotable / memeable when whatever he's in. Dune, obviously, it was nominated for 10 Academy Awards, won 6 of them. Just absolutely did a huge sweep at the Oscars. So hopefully this next one will be on the same level and maybe even get a director nom if Denis is lucky here, because that was
hopefully
one that was missing from the last time. How do you guys feel about Dune Part 2 and the new cast members that are coming along?
Dude, this cast is stacked. Stacked cast to the max. I love the first Dune movie. Like you mentioned, though, I felt as though it wasn't a complete film. It felt like a portion of a complete film. But I'm happy that the second part has gotten greenlit, and we're going to be able to see the completed story. In terms of Walken specifically, he's a great actor. However, I'm nervous about seeing him in this sci-fi world.
I'm having visions of Zendaya.
The cadence of which he talks never disappears. He has never been. I've never seen him in a movie where he doesn't talk like himself. So I'm wondering if that plays into the character at all. As I mentioned when we reviewed Dune in November of last year, I've never read the books. So like you, Brian, I really have no context for what this character is like. I just know, like you said, he's basically responsible for kicking off the entire plot of that first movie. So we'll see. But if nothing else, the cast is great, and I'm excited to see what Denis Villeneuve does with this part 2.
Chris, on his voice, it made me think of Harvey Keitel is in The Last Temptation of Christ, which is a period drama, and it's just
like a New York accent, right?
Just doing his Harvey Keitel voice,
yeah.
And it's one of the strangest things I've ever seen on screen. So it's going to be interesting to see him in Dune.
Jesus, you're going to have to die on the cross, okay? You see that cross, you got to get up on it, and they're going to stick some stuff to you, and it's not going to feel good. But you got to do what you got to do.
Pretty much.
Well,
my character.
I don't even know how much this character is going to be in the sequel. So it might just be a couple of scenes. We'll see.
My character will disappear into the dunes of sand. It's my very bad Walken that I've subjected everyone to. I will stop now. I promise.
It's not that bad. It's pretty good.
You know, you're saying all this stuff. I don't even know if he's going to be on Arrakis, to be perfectly honest.
Arrakis.
That's true, too.
Can you just imagine Christopher Walken saying, Arrakis? I'm so excited.
Let the spice flow
from Arrakis. Arrakis.
Spice is nice. All right. Anyway, Christopher Walken is going to be in Dune Part 2.
Oh, yes. Christopher Walken is showing Dune Part 2. That'll be out in October of 2023 as of right now. Some more casting news. Francis Ford Coppola, we've been talking about him a good deal the last few months as The Offer just came out, a series about the making of The Godfather. Excuse me. He is self-funding a movie that he's been trying to make for decades and that he has not been able to get produced. It's called Megalopolis. The plot of it: the fate of Rome haunts a modern world unable to solve its own social problems in this epic story of political ambition, genius, and conflicted love. So Coppola is putting up $100 million of his own money to produce this movie and finance it. Adam Driver has just signed on to star in it, as well as Natalie Emmanuel, Forrest Whitaker, John Voight, and Lawrence Fishburne. So another ridiculously stacked cast. Coppola clearly has FU money and can do whatever he wants. And thankfully,
it's the Vineyard.
It's the Vineyard is funding Megalopolis, and I'm completely here for it. This man has made some absolutely incredible movies. We covered his Bram Stoker's Dracula, which I actually rewatched since we watched it, and a really, really fun movie. Very easy to watch and incredibly directed. Obviously, the classics, The Godfather, Apocalypse Now. This man's been stewing on this movie for a really long time, and I'm really excited to see what it's going to be, even though the plot gives very little away about it, outside of the specter of Rome hanging over the modern world. But clearly, there's a lot to dive into there. Chris, I know you've been on a bit of a Coppola kick lately. How do you feel about this news?
Hold on. Before you respond, Keanu Reeves is calling in, and he's talking about the spirit of Francis Ford Coppola.
It's just a man himself. Look, he's grown young.
It's a man himself. He's grown young.
Yeah.
Bram Stoker's Dracula. Chris, continue.
Like you, Brian, I'm really excited to see this movie. I love Adam Driver, and I think this movie is I think this is the perfect time for him to finally get the movie made, considering what the state of our country, what is currently taking place in it, and this idea that like a fall of an empire we're on the cusp of destroying ourselves. So
dark. You went real dark, man.
I'm just saying, now seems like a very poignant time to release a film like this.
Feels like we're in strange new worlds, doesn't it, Chris? So sorry.
We'll talk about that next week. I think he has chosen the perfect time to release a movie like this. So we'll see what he's able to do with it.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm not the biggest Coppola fan. I know Chris is, and obviously he's made one of the best movies ever made, according to most people. And I would pretty much agree with that. He's like 95 years old, and this man is still trying to make a big movie. And if you're Adam Driver, if you're all these other talented people, you're like, this might be the last movie he ever makes. And I want to be in a Francis Ford Coppola movie. So hopefully it gets done. It reminds me of, what's his name? George Miller? Is that the Mad Max guy?
Yeah.
These old Scorsese, just these old men, just like
until the day they die, they're gonna die on set,
crushing it. Like it's insane. Clint Eastwood made like an okay movie. From your account, I didn't watch it. The one where he's a bull rider or some other ridiculous thing, and he's like literally evaporating he's almost becoming spice.
He excitedly walks away from the police.
Turning to dust.
He's turning to dust. God, this has gotten out of hand.
Ridley Scott made 2 movies that came out last year.
Dude,
Adam Driver in both of them.
Both of them. Lucky man.
It's the Chinese year of the old man, is what it is. So it's very exciting. Brian shaking his head. Was that insensitive? I'm sorry. I meant just like a name of dragons. Anyway, Brian, what else is on the news docket? Walken's back.
So yeah, that's Adam Driver and Natalie Emmanuel are starring in Francis Ford Coppola's Megalopolis. Moving on to some stuff that's coming out this week. We've got a show coming to Amazon Prime Video this Friday called Night Sky. The premise of this, married couple Franklin and Irene York discover a portal in their backyard that leads to a deserted planet. We talked recently.
Okay. Not only is there another show that includes Josh Brolin finding a portal.
Outlander.
Hey, we don't know if that's a portal. That's just a hole, at least.
It's a portal, bro. It's a portal.
It's going to be really boring if it's just a hole.
It's not in the house. It's in the backyard.
And he's like, it was a sinkhole. We live on mostly limestone. Mystery
We were
solved.
asking for it, to
But
be
not
honest.
only is there, a mystery hole show, they're both on Amazon Prime.
Amazon Prime loves mystery holes.
Loves unknown holes.
That's a different movie.
Do you think the zinger at the end is like,
for Prime?
You can even, that was going to be my joke, was like, even Prime delivers to that hole.
Oh, God. Yes, right. So this is created by Holden Miller and Daniel C. Connolly.
It's created by Holden Miller?
Holden? Get it? Oh, my God. What is happening tonight?
Completely off the rails. My God. Yes.
The whole series is out now.
The 2 leads. Wow. We need the harmonica badly.
His 2 legs are digging McTrenches.
Scooby McDirt.
Scooby McDirt.
Oh, man.
Clearly. This stars 2 Academy Award winners, Sissy Spacek and J.K.
Scooby
Simmons.
McDirt.
And Scooby McDirt.
Renowned Academy Award-winning actor.
And I got to say, this trailer looked kind of intriguing. It's one of the trailers that maybe gives away. I didn't read part of the plot because I think there's something that's given away here. But yeah, similar to Outer Range, this is very much in that realm of kind of mystery, thriller, sci-fi sort of things. With these 2 actors in the lead roles, looks kind of intriguing, both on Prime Video, so relatively accessible if you are interested in that. Outer Range as well that we talked about. I've been hearing good things about, actually. So that's
Brian, do you perceive that there's going to be a lot of plot holes in either of these shows?
They're going to get...
If there are, they're going to travel through space.
like wormholes? I've completely lost the plot here. But yes, lots of plot holes and Portals in Night Sky. That'll be on Amazon Prime this Friday. We've also got some movies coming out this week. Alex Garland's latest movie from A24, Men, is coming out this Friday. It stars Jessie Buckley and Rory Kinnear and follows a young woman's time in the English countryside after the death of her husband. This is the kind of thing that if you watch the trailer, it may become clear to you certain elements of what this movie is. But if you're at all a fan of Alex Garland, who did Ex Machina and Annihilation, both really incredible movies, I think, great sci-fi filmmaker, I think it's probably best to go into this not knowing anything. I don't even want to say what I'm referring to here, but definitely seems something that is dealing with how men treat women and the societal expectations and pressures and things that go along with that, and framed through a kind of fantasy horror lens. Looks beautifully shot.
It's interesting that you're able to deliver such a succinct analysis of what this movie's about, Brian, because from what I've heard, the movie is very good, but nobody knows what it's about.
Interesting. And I'll tell you what I don't know if you know what I'm dancing around, but there's something that
maybe off mic we'll talk about.
Yeah, we'll talk about it afterwards. But Alex Garland, usually a surefire bet, is making really great movies. So Men is coming out this Friday. We also have, this is something, never been my cup of tea, terrible pun intended. Downton Abbey, A New Era is, yeah, Christian, I know. The harmonica needs to be back. Downton Abbey, A New Era, the second Downton Abbey movie, is coming to theaters this Friday. This follows the Crawley family, who goes on a grand journey to the south of France to uncover the mystery of the Dowager Countess's newly inherited villa. It stars Hugh Bonneville, Elizabeth McGovern, Maggie Smith, Michelle Dockery, Laura Carmichael, and many more. And it's a Downton Abbey movie. This is written by Julian Fellows, who wrote the show and the first movie. We have a new director for this one, Simon Curtis. And this is something that feels like the people who are going to see this movie are going to see this movie and they're going to love it. It's kind of, from what my understanding, a conservative wet dream in terms of the UK, a bit of a fantasy in its own right. But I'm sure there's going to be beautiful outfits, beautiful set designs, and it, by all accounts, is a very sweet movie in a lot of ways. So I know you guys are probably not going to see this movie.
I've seen the trailer. As we've been to the movies like 5 times, I've seen the trailer for Downton Abbey 5 times. And by the 5th time watching the trailer, I asked myself, should I be a Downton Abbey fan? Now, you're putting me in a bad light by going, wet dream for the conservative elite. But I mean, it's...
I didn't say conservative. They were talking about it on an Empire podcast, and they're from the UK. So I am kind of going off of what they said about the movie because they were doing a review of it.
Yes. All I got to say is it's supremely British, and it's charming in that British way. And it is kind of this like fantasy world of living in the opulence of the UK in that time, and that's a fun place. I mean, it's fun to be like rich, it's fun to be like privileged in a way, but they're having fun with it, and that's what's important. Like, we want to be transported there. Of like, what would I do if I was sipping tea and eating crumpets or whatever you do with? I don't know what you do with crumpets, and maybe we're hanging out and I'm like, Jerry, it's good to see you. Chris, Brian, good day. And then but my butler, Maxwell, please, the tea. We have a situation on our hands. It's a fiasco. Do you see what's out in the backyard? It's a hole, and I think it goes to another dimension. Maxwell, get the DeLorean.
I would watch that Downton Abbey movie.
Actually,
anyway, sorry.
Yeah, that's...
Sorry.
I will say my wife is a huge Downton Abbey fan.
Oh, really?
And I told her, I was like, I'll go see this with you. I've seen not a second of Downton Abbey or the first movie, but I was just like, if you want to go see this, I'll go see it. I don't think I need any context to like piece together what's going on, but we'll see. Maybe in the future I'll do a Downton Abbey review for the show. We'll see.
I think I loved...
That's what our listeners and viewers really want to see, right?
The best thing
Downton
about the
Abbey
trailer,
content.
the trailer, maybe there's a huge diehard fan base out there. The last thing I'll say about this, the stinger at the end of the trailer, is literally like what seems to be the main character of the movie, shitting on the concept of movies.
Oh yeah,
Maggie Smith. Yeah.
She's like, it'd be better if you couldn't see them. And I was like, ooh, you cheeky old hag.
Cheeky devil.
Cheeky devil. Have you seen the hole in the backyard, Maxwell?
All right. It's locked in. We're doing Downton Abbey month. Downton December coming soon.
Let's do it. Fuck Avatar. Downton Abbey.
Honestly.
All the way.
Downton Abbey is pop culture, Chris. Okay. It's definitive.
What the hell does Downton mean? Anyway.
You got to watch 4 seasons of television and 2 movies to find out. That's Downton Abbey, a new era that'll be in theaters this Friday. We talked about the trailer for this when it came out. Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers is coming to Disney Plus this Friday. The premise of this: 30 years after the Rescue Rangers series ended production, Chip works as an insurance salesman while Dale has had CGI surgery and works the convention circuit in hopes of reliving his glory days. When a cast member of the original series mysteriously disappears, Chip and Dale must reunite with the rest of the group, save their friend, and rebuild the two's friendship. This movie looks really funny and kind of aimed at all audiences. I think it doesn't seem like solely a kids movie. Looks very funny. The animation is very interesting, mixing live action and different sorts of animation together, as we see one of the characters has gotten an upgrade and the other one is in the old school series of animation. The cast for this: we have John Mulaney, Andy Samberg, Will Arnett, Eric Bana, Keegan-Michael Key, Seth Rogen, J.K. Simmons, and Kiki Lane. All-star cast. It is directed by Akiva Schaffer and written by Dan Greger and Doug Mand. And the second trailer really kind of, and I guess we kind of got this vibe a little bit from the first trailer, but it really leaned into the Who Framed Roger Rabbit kind of feel and is a mystery in a similar way. But it kind of made me excited. I think Who Framed Roger Rabbit is a near masterpiece movie. I think it's incredible, and maybe I won't expect it to live up to that. But if it's going for similar things, no. And I generally try and go in with minor expectations with all things. But I'm pretty hopeful for this one, and it's going to be straight to Disney Plus, so relatively available if you have that. What did you guys think of this original trailer or the new trailer for this?
Brian, I think you should send some of that hope my way, because this movie looks like doo-doo.
What?
You think so?
Crazy.
I am a huge fan of Who Framed Roger Rabbit, the original. And I completely agree with you that it looks like it's going to be kind of like a spiritual successor trying to like recapture that magic. Despite me thinking that it looks awful, I'm still going to watch it because I have to know. And I think that's part of Disney's marketing plan is like, even if you hate watch it, you still watched it. So I'm sure it's definitely something we'll talk about here on the podcast. There were some things that made me laugh in the most recent trailer. I do like the fact, I'm a fan of the cast. I like John Mulaney as a comedian. I like Andy Samberg. There's a portion of the trailer in which they put on the old Chip 'n Dale voices as if when they were in the show, those were voices that they were putting on as actors to like embody those characters. I think that's a really funny bit. There are definitely some funny moments in the trailer, but I don't know. I don't think Disney's capable of recapturing the magic of Roger Rabbit. I also think this is like a weird attempt to play on nostalgia of our generation, kids that grew up with Disney Afternoon, watching, Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers on television and all those cartoons. I don't know. I don't foresee this being very good, but I got to check it out. I'm interested, to say the least. Christian has a totally opposite opinion, apparently.
I think you're crazy. I don't hold Who Framed Roger Rabbit with the religious iconography that a lot of people seem to do of like, this is definitive. I think it's great, but it's never meant that much to me. So anything that's embodying it or a spiritual successor, I don't feel like is crossing a territory that I'm uncomfortable with. So that's where I'm coming from, which probably leans a lot into our opinions. This looks like a fun kids movie that also is commentary on animation, the history of animation, which I think is super cool, and what characters mean when characters go through transformations. Also the difficulty I have a lot more respect for animators in the past.
Now that I've animated a couple things myself.
Yeah, I've animated a couple of things myself. There's a lot of work that goes into even like the silly graphics that someone made. I don't know who did it, but they did a great job. You know,
Brian did.
The fact that they're blending, we've talked a lot about Corridor Crew, and like I've watched that and getting insight into that, and just thinking of the challenges of having different animation styles in the same scene have to look lit and shadowed and rotoscoped well into the scene. That's just really impressive, and I thought it looked amazing. And the jokes that they're doing when playing on the animation, that's what really sold me. I'm like, oh, this is really smart and was clearly made by like a history of animators and animators that care. And you need a diverse group of animators to do that, because you need people that do CGI and you need people that do old school, you know, Roger Rabbit type integration. So it seems really special. It's got this special essence. I don't want to hype it up too much. I don't want to get too excited, but as far as something that I didn't expect to care about at all, there's just a lot of charm, and I mean, come on, J.K. Simmons, Will Arnett, like it's teaming with people that I love. So I'm very, very excited for this, and it's very weird to be very excited for a kids show, or a kids movie, but I think it looks like it has a lot of special things brewing, and it could be really good.
I personally hope I'm horribly wrong. I hope that the movie turns out to be what both of you want it to be, because I would love that. That'd be fantastic. Is J.K. Simmons playing the old Peter Pan in the movie? Do you know?
I'm not sure.
It looks like one of the main antagonists is an aged Peter Pan, which I find to be really funny as well. I think he might be playing that character, but I can't confirm. Anyway.
Okay. But yeah, that's Chippendale Rescue Rangers that'll be premiering on Disney Plus this Friday. Tune in the next week or two to hear Chris's full 180 turnaround. Favorite movie of the year.
It was the best.
Who Framed Roger Rabbit is now trash.
Pales in comparison to Chippendale.
And that is it for the news this week.
Brian, thanks for bringing that wacky news. Quite a lot of information there. We got some Holes talk, that new Holes series, all the Holes series, which is good. That's all I really remember. I forgot what else you talked about. Oh yeah, and the Spice Man. Yeah.
All the talk of those glorious holes.
Great, absolutely wonderful Wacky News Corner. And now, for everybody in the audio feed listeners and the YouTube watchers, we are going to go into our review of Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness.
Someone once told me that the reality I thought I knew was just one of many.
Be careful which path you travel down. Stronger than you have lost their way.
You think there will be no consequences? We're in the end game now.
I sacrificed everything, and it meant nothing.
Oh, Strange. What have you done?
I never meant for this to happen.
That is from the trailer of Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. What I'm realizing is we have no information in the show notes about the movie that we're talking about. Normally, I read show notes about it, but it is directed by Sam Raimi, written by, is it Mark Werner?
Michael Waldron.
Michael Waldron. I had like the essence of the name right. Written by Michael Waldron, and it stars Benedict Cumberbatch as the titular Doctor Strange. It also stars Elizabeth Olsen as Wanda Sykes. No, Wanda Vision.
Maximoff. Scarlet Witch. Xochitl Gomez as America Chavez.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it.
Benedict Wong is Wong.
I am Ron Burgundy. Look what you've done to me, gentlemen. Someone is
Rachel McAdams as Christine
fired.
Palmer.
All right.
I'm just listing actors and actresses in the
Wonderful.
film.
And with a score by Danny Elfman, and
Indeed.
it's grossed quite a lot of money. They believe it grossed in the United States, I want to say it grossed $160 million already, something like that.
I think it was 146 million,
146.
maybe?
It was 90, 50, 30, I think was the breakdown of the weekend. Anyway, very, very successful movie, but critically a little divisive. Fans are split on this one, which is really interesting. So what are we going to do for this quick hit special review? We're going to talk about our overall feelings and thoughts in non-spoilers. What we think thematically is working about the movie.
As of this recording, the worldwide box office is $532.6 million.
Yeah, chimp change. So it's grossed a lot of money still, despite it got a B cinema score, which is like the first one since like Thor: The Dark World, I think, and even that might even
And Eternals.
And Eternals, yes. So Phase 4 starting a little rough as far as like critical reception. Definitely some divisive films they're doing, but we're going to talk all about that, and then we'll have a brief spoiler section where we'll mention some of our favorite moments, and we'll talk about how we think the Phase 4 is going right now. How's that sound, boys? Sound like a plan?
Sounds great. Let's do it.
So I'm going to start with you, Brian. I think I already know where we're at. I'm probably hottest on the film, and you're probably medium, and Chris, you might be the one that has the most issues with it. So we'll kind of go in a medium.
I still really liked it.
Wonderful. I mean, I'm excited, dude. Brian, what did you think of Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness?
I had a really great time with Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. I thought it was taking big conceptual swings and giving us kind of a new angle on the multiverse concept, kind of fleshing it out in a fun new way. Even though I know Chris is gonna bring up MacGuffins, but I really did feel like it gave you a lot to dive into and kind of threw a lot at you, and just you kind of had to roll with a couple of one line explaining something, and then the rest of the movie just builds on that, and you go with it. In terms of the order of release, it felt a little bit strange, and I guess the MCU hasn't always been
strange, you say.
Yeah,
can I tell you, I've listened to so much commentary on this film, and everybody has made that joke, Chris. So thank you for.
Oh, really?
Yes, it is.
Whoops.
We're all one collective consciousness. That's what I've learned.
Brian set me up for it. I couldn't help it.
I did. It was a layup. It was.
Anyway, sorry, Chris. I didn't mean to call you out, but
I haven't heard anyone else make that joke. So okay. Apparently, we're all just really basic. That's really what it comes down to.
Interesting. Brian, continue.
But this was originally supposed to come out before Spider-Man No Way Home, and I think it feels that way. And I'm not sure. We don't really get a real sense of the timeline. Nothing that happens in No Way Home is referenced in this movie. So I guess theoretically this could still be.
They do say they reference Spider-Man.
They reference it?
Yeah.
Okay. So this must have been an added scene. Okay.
I think this movie,
I'm sure it was a reshoot. Yeah.
I'm going to say 30 to 50% of this movie were added, changed, ADR, moved around.
Most likely.
You think it was that much? Okay.
A shocking amount, which I think largely doesn't matter in these kind of movies. But anyway, continue. Sorry.
Well, given that, I think the movie still works incredibly well, considering. I think it would have worked a little better had it come before No Way Home. For me personally, I think it's interesting how it has big implications, but still feels like a kind of straightforward, relatively small story. Obviously, with a lot of baggage that you're bringing into from the previous stuff that it's working off of. The Sam Raimi elements in terms of the cinematography and the gore and kind of like comedy horror-ish elements were absolutely phenomenal. I was laughing / cringing at a lot of the gore and effects throughout the course of this movie. I think it made the tension work really well, and it kind of carried the movie along. There are a lot of just surprising bits.
Would you say it carried the movie along, Brian?
I think that's what I said.
Is that a Carrie joke?
Yes.
We were talking about Sissy Spacek earlier, so fair enough. I think the special effects are largely awesome, and I really want to go back and see it in 3D. I can't wait to hear your takes on how it looked, Christian. I know you were pretty impressed with it. But yeah, I think it wasn't necessarily like top tier Marvel for me. But given how much this movie had to do and what's been built up prior, I thought it really worked impressively well. And we'll get into some of the other stuff in spoilers.
Chris, what are your thoughts on Doctor Strange: The Multiverse of Madness?
Brian, like you, I had an absolute blast watching this movie. Like, I was smiling from ear to ear for most of the film. And that's mostly because I didn't expect Kevin Feige and Marvel Studios to let Sam Raimi go as crazy as he did with this movie. I expected his kind of cinematic sensibilities to be a little more contained. You know, that's typically Marvel Studios' MO for the most part. I mean, there are some gems where you can really see the director's kind of vision in them. But, oh my God, this movie is so much fun and is, I think, like a horror-friendly film. You know, like most of our listeners know that I'm not the biggest fan of horror, nor is Christian. But there are a lot of elements in here that kind of feel like Army of Darkness kind of rides that comedic horror line like you were talking about, Brian. And I think that's really where the strengths of this movie lie, in the visuals of the film, in some of those more horrific scenes. They're just a lot of fun. You know, the movie moves at a breakneck pace. Like right from the get-go, we're kind of like right in the middle of it. Action right from the very start. And it never really stops from that point up until the end. And I appreciate about the movie. The movie's about 2 hours long. You don't even feel the runtime, you know? But I do think that it's certainly not the strongest script that the MCU has ever released. I was telling Brian off record that there are 4 different MacGuffins in this film. And one of which definitely provides absolutely nothing.
I think there's 9 MacGuffins in Endgame.
There are quite a few MacGuffins in Endgame, but even those help move
more
the story forward in a positive way.
MacGuffins.
Some of these MacGuffins don't really mean anything, you know? So I definitely don't think it's the strongest script. For being a Doctor Strange movie, there are some really good Doctor Strange moments. Some things are mentioned that kind of move his character forward. And I think there are conceptually some really interesting things here that Michael Waldron wanted to do with the character of Doctor Strange. But I think because of how quickly the movie moves, they never really flush them out to a degree that makes them of quality, you know? There are even things within the film that I'm starting to think kind of contradict where we were with Doctor Strange in the first Doctor Strange movie. But obviously he's been through a lot as a character in the MCU with Infinity War and Endgame and even Spider-Man No Way Home. But yeah, I had a blast. This is a Marvel movie that I will continuously come back to because of how visually interesting it is and how much fun it is to watch. Not necessarily because of the strength of the story, but just because it's super entertaining. You know, it doesn't quite crack my top 10 favorite MCU films, but I'm not gonna lie, I had a blast watching it despite all those things that I just mentioned. And honestly, Brian, like you, I really do want to see this again in 3D. I think it would be spectacular in 3D.
Spectacular it is. And gentlemen, this is one of my favorite Marvel movies to come out in a long time. It would be in my top 5 for sure. To give some prefaces to Marvel fans watching that think that's a strong statement, I also really like Iron Man 2, Captain America Civil War. I also like Avengers Age of Ultron. So I like a lot of movies that have been critically and from fans slight misses. Because I personally enjoy, and I think this is a personal thing, these Marvel movies when they are less structured, when they're less cookie cutter, and when they are a bit messy, just like, you know, my favorite comics that I've read, which is arguably not as much as Chris, but comics are real messy. And everybody loves Endgame, and I love Endgame too, but that movie is structurally it's big, right? And it's gelatinous and it's floppy, like my baby. You know, there's parts of it that are just uneven and unbalanced. And I actually rewatched Infinity War and Endgame to get a sense of this because I'm like, those movies are big and unwieldy. And like, yes, they are. It's worth it because of past character development. That's the strength of the MCU. And what I appreciate about this movie, and similar to those movies, which is there are things that improve the experience of the MCU, but I think this movie is so economic. As much as it is, obviously, you can see the seams if you really look for it, the duct tape of this getting a different director, them doing reshoots, them shuffling around the release order, that kind of thing. I think you can see those things. But despite that, the character development is there for me. I thought a lot more was working with Doctor Strange's character since the beginning of the character. For me, this is the most interesting Doctor Strange it's kind of retreading earlier territory, but I think in a much more nuanced way that separates him more from characters like Tony Stark, which I think he was very much way too similar to in the first Doctor Strange. So they give him more nuance, and there's a lot of cool things with the multiverse. They play around with his character and who he could be and who he is, right? And how he's going to define himself as this Doctor Strange. I think Elizabeth Olsen steals the show.
She's
and
fantastic.
Is incredible, and I think that it has built really well from Age of Ultron up until this moment. Being a big fan of Age of Ultron and Civil War, and obviously Endgame, she's a prominent character, and I really, really like this turn. I've heard some criticism, a lot of criticism specifically from some women critics that don't love the way that women have been treated, and I understand that. I don't really see that perspective, but I'm also a man. So I will admit that there are perspectives out there that have different views about how Marvel's treated characters. I think that, without getting into spoilers, this is incredibly interesting, and it makes, for me, Wanda one of the more interesting characters in the entire MCU, soup to nuts towards the beginning of the arc. So,
do you mind if I interject here really quick while we're talking about that?
No, please go ahead.
You bring up that some women don't like the way Wanda's portrayed in this film, but I have to say, I've also seen, and again, we're just three dudes, so who are we to say? But I've seen other women really like how Wanda's portrayed in this film, because she's quite a badass in this movie. My wife in particular walked out of that movie. My wife's a big fan of Loki, and she walked out of this movie and she was like, I love Dark Wanda. Like, I absolutely love that character. So I don't think we can make umbrella statements about how. Yeah,
no, I'm just making the statement that I have heard that critique specifically from some female critics, and I just wanted to make that known as I shared that I appreciated the turn, but I can understand if someone has a different opinion. That was more or less what I was saying. But yeah, so that's all working for me. From a visual element, this is the best 3D movie I've ever seen, and part of that is, as we said earlier in the weekly upload, I never saw Avatar in 3D, so there's that.
We're going to remedy that come September.
Wow.
From go, the way that they managed depth and space in the visual effects, it totally clarified visual elements that normally are very smudgy and wishy-washy in these types of movies. It was really clear, the separation, and this just, I'm actually curious to see how it plays on 2D. I don't think I would have been as enraptured in the action as I was, because the magic and spells that are happening in the crazy dimensional stuff and the planets, like, it pops. So it is fucking glorious is the only way I could say it. Like a feast, a visual just there is a sequence in which we fly through multiple multiverses, as you can imagine, in this movie named Multiverse of Madness, and I was just like jaw on the floor of how beautiful and where this goes. And it has just a straight horror scene. There's really not there's probably 3 or 4 handful of Raimi horror moments surrounded in a cocoon of a Marvel movie. But I think that's just enough for general audiences. I even think it might be a little too scary for, especially smaller kids. But I really appreciate that Marvel with the Eternals, with this, I think No Way Home is a more critical success, but on paper, it's very dangerous what they did in No Way Home. They are taking swings. They are trying things. And I can say that if a conglomerate is going to take this much talent, some of my favorite actors and favorite directors, please let them keep pushing like this, right? And I'm not against Notes Studios making it more cohesive with their universe, which is a lot of what Raimi was saying, was like, as he's like smiling and being very professional and probably wants another job, but he's just like, they just love their characters. They just want to protect their characters. It's all about their characters. And I see him as an older, wiser man navigating the system, but like he has the good idea of like, whenever they're doing this, they just want it to make sense cohesively. And I do think, as much as messy as I'll admit it is, dude, getting on the ride, put my harnesses on and going, like the character stuff worked really well. And the spectacle is, I will say, 3,000 times better than anything in No Way Home, especially the 3D experience. At no point No Way Home was like, wow, that never happened from a spectacle standpoint. It did from a character and introducing characters and all this other stuff. It did never, ever, that, the scene at the Captain America Statue of Liberty, it's that scene sucks to me. It's like there's very little for me to grab onto and get excited about other than the characters we see there. In this, I don't really care that much about Doctor Strange that much, you know, emotionally, nostalgically about this character. But there's a fucking music fight with musical notes, okay? I'm just going to point that out.
Here?
That's not a spoiler. It's not a spoiler to say there's a music fight with music. It spoils no character development, nothing. All I will say is there's musical, and Danny Elfman's score in combination with this is
great.
Dude, it's one of the coolest things I've ever seen in any Marvel movie. So for me, for what I want from a Marvel movie, have the emotional stuff. The story can be as messy as it wants. Just be true to the characters. Be true to the characters. And let's have fun and have some cool visual effects. Dude, this delivered on every single point, and that's why it's top tier Marvel for me. I had such a blast. I get it if you don't like it as much, and I'm not going to like get on a high horse and say you're wrong about not loving it as much as I did, but man, I got on that ride, and I was fucking on it, and I had such a good time. It was so good.
I hope you're not talking to me when you're saying that. I hope you're talking to our audience. Because
I know there's a little bit of division, which makes me a little sad because of how much I enjoyed it, and it reminds me that I'm a weirdo. And
but you're absolutely right with what you're saying. Like, compared to Spider-Man: No Way Home, just the character of Doctor Strange and the conceit of the film lends itself to being visually more interesting than what we got in No Way Home. Like, it's just capable of doing more with the visuals because we're blasting through the multiverse and we're using magic and like all this
Spider-Man
other stuff.
2 has the most iconic Spider-Man shit. You can do Spider-Man shit and have it be visually interesting. The opening of Amazing Spider-Man 2. Okay, Spider-Man can be visually interesting. He flies through New York City on webs. And No Way Home just had very little of that. It had some stuff, it's action-packed. But beat for beat, there's no touching something like this. And, another Sam Raimi
Spider-Man 2 also has the benefit of having Sam Raimi's awesome camera work.
Yeah, this felt like the most personality a Marvel movie has had visually in a long time, and I was really relieved to see that. And if you're nailing everything else pretty much good, you can be as wacky and goofy and have as many MacGuffins as you want. I don't care, as long as we're having fun and the character stuff's there. Any other thoughts? Oh, please, Brian.
Yeah, I just wanted to say before we get into spoilers, although I'm sure they're going to develop her more later, I think America Chavez's character was maybe a little underserved by this story.
She's a living MacGuffin.
She may be, and I think she's going to become more later.
I think so too.
But she really doesn't get much to do here. But we do have Wanda being clearly one of the standouts here. So she is. I do want to acknowledge that Elizabeth Olsen is incredible as Wanda and is doing great work. But yeah, unfortunately, America Chavez doesn't have all that much to do.
She plays a similar role, real quickly, Chris. She plays a similar role that Black Panther does in Civil War, which is a way to introduce a character that not a lot of people know about. She is integral to the plot, but it's really not about her. We just get basically a truncated origin story in which they're not going to do a whole film with her, but they do need to introduce and introduce the character. Although they did make a Black Panther film. The point of it is that the origin, which I love, because they need to stop making origin movies. They're like...
Yeah, just quickly introduce a character, have them pop in and out. I'm fine with that too.
They're a superhero. Awesome. Chris, you were going to say, sorry for interrupting.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I'm sad that this movie and No Way Home got flipped, because initially in No Way Home, for those that are unaware, America Chavez was supposed to be the character that brought our two Peters into the MCU universe. Not Ned, but because of COVID.
I was going to say spoiler alerts for No Way Home, but that film grossed $8 billion, so I'm pretty sure everybody saw it.
Yeah. So I'm a little disappointed that we didn't get to see that, but it is what it is.
But Ned got superpowers. But it's crazy how much they...
Makes a lot of sense.
I can imagine if you look at this with a critical eye on your second viewing, like so much dialogue. Elizabeth Olsen was in an interview, and she was like, I didn't meet most of the people that were in the film, especially particularly one scene, because they shot this during COVID as well, like nobody is in the same room. And she's like, when they did, they're like, what about the reshoots? What was that process like? She's like, I recorded them all remotely.
ADR. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So I think it's a master of like how well they're doing visual effects. For instance, that No Way Home, that Ned scene where he's at MIT, he's not there in that.
You're talking about the Flash sequence where he's at the party.
Not Ned, the Flash.
Yeah,
he's like at a party. He's not actually there. Like they wanted to add that, so they just had him do it in front of a green screen. And if you look really hard, you're like, oh, that looks bad. But it goes by so quick that you probably don't notice it. But it's crazy how even when we say special effects, you think music fight and space magic powers, and really there's also just an insane amount of none of these characters have ever met each other. They're not in any rooms. But yeah. All right. Any other thoughts before we go into spoilers?
One last thing, and it's mostly because you mentioned Age of Ultron and that being one of your favorite movies. And I have to say, I love Age of Ultron as well. I've watched it multiple times. I was talking
And Iron Man 2, right?
I do like Iron Man 2. It's not the best MCU movie, but
hey, that's why we're friends.
I was talking to the C4S Villain Boys a couple days ago, and I was telling them how I think this movie is probably going to age similarly to Age of Ultron, in that it introduces a lot of context and ideas that will connect the overall multiversal arc of the MCU, but as of right now, those threads are just kind of hanging there. So if you look at this movie, it feels very disconnected and kind of leading to nowhere because we don't have more context in the overall super expensive television show that is the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Just like Age of Ultron was trying to set up the Infinity Stones, which seemingly have nothing to do with anything that's going on in that film. So, when we're just looking...
Iron Man 2 is essential before the Avengers. Like, Iron Man 2 is a greater contextualization of preparing us for Avengers. So
right. And this is a concept that I've spoken about here on the podcast before, and we've talked about Marvel movies, which is like this very weird thing that happens with the MCU where they kind of retroactively get better based on more context that we learn as the films progress, which isn't really how you should critique film. Like, each of these films should be standalone pieces and they should be able to work on their own. But it's this very strange phenomenon that happens with these movies as time goes on. The more context we receive, the better some of these movies get.
But I think, and it's a tricky thing because what happens is you have characters, it's all about the characters. The characters, when it's fan servicey, it can be annoying when it's just kind of like, oh, and he's wearing the boots that he wore in that one comic that I know about. Like, if that's for you and that's what made the character great, like, that's not character development. Where Marvel rides the line is they have characters come in very briefly, not say a lot, but it adds to their character, their relationship with the other characters that we already know, and that's what's rewarding, which feels more earnest to me, as much as it is.
Agreed.
Did you see Doctor Strange? Well, hold on. You got some homework to do. You got a few movies you got to watch first. But, everybody's seen the movies, so it doesn't matter anyway. All right, let's move on into spoilers. I do not, Daddy's been working overtime. I do not have an animation for a spoiler alert, but I'll mouth it.
In the future.
Add some shaky cam or something. So I don't want to spend a whole lot of time. I do want to get just one favorite moment from all of us, and then we can go into how we think phase 4 is done, and then we'll have to wrap this bad boy up with community feedback because we running long, baby. So who wants to go first with the favorite moment? I know I quote unquote spoiled one already, so
Brian, you could go first.
Well, no, honestly, I think we kind of spoiled Wanda being the villain a little bit too. I was kind
Chris
of
just said Dark Wanda.
It's like, oh no.
He just said Dark Wanda. So I don't know if that counts.
Okay, fair. Honestly, yeah, the musical fight was amazing, and it's an energy battle. Like, Marvel's known for these like energy struggles, and they took that and made it into something that was completely original and so much fun.
Actually,
so
good.
That was. It was actually
compelling.
it made me think, of course, of Kung Fu Hustle, the famous scene in that as well. But yeah, I really love that scene. Honestly, one of my favorite moments is, first of all, just how we get the cameos, and we can talk specifically about the cameos and what we think of those. The Illuminati just appearing and then just getting wiped out grotesquely by Wanda.
It's excellent.
Was such an incredible choice.
Dude, I was in my seat. I'm not even kidding you. I'm in my seat going like, there's a kid right over there. And like, do they have to walk out? I'm like, this is intense. This is awesome, dude.
String cheese, Krasinski.
Reed Richards getting turned into like balloon animals, and then his head literally with the Foley work with the pop.
Oh.
Foley is doing like 80% of the battle because they are like riding the PG-13 Marvel line, but they apparently the MSRP or what? Not MSRP. The EPA, American Film. What is it? I don't forget. Whoever does the American film ratings. I don't think they had the volume up all the way because the sounds were very gory.
They put those in on the edit on the way to the theaters. They weren't there when it got scored.
And just to be clear,
hearing the guts of Captain Peggy Carter fall out of her. Dude, the blood, and you know how they get away with it? It's like all silhouette, but it's like chunks of blood, but it's silhouetted. It's very tasteful, very good.
It's a great sequence. And for our viewers and listeners, I think Christian and I are in agreement that nobody in this sequence was in the same room when they were shooting it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like this is the sequence where everybody was up against a green screen and they just put them all in the same CGI environment at the very end. But I too, Brian, absolutely love this sequence. It was a lot of fun. I don't know if you guys caught it while you were watching the movie. I've seen some stills of it, and I think this is a movie that's going to be a lot of fun to go back to once it's on VOD and 4K and freeze frame some of these images. But when Wanda jumps out of the red smoke inside her and Xavier's mind space and snaps his neck, she's like full demon in that moment. I don't know if you saw, like, the makeup they have on her is like incredibly pale and she has sharper teeth and her eyes are glowing. It's scary looking. There were moments when we were watching this movie where I had to keep turning to my wife, Mickey, because she's also not a fan of horror. And I really just wanted to like see how she was processing what was happening. And this was her face most of the time that I was looking at her, like,
and that's
especially during the sequence where she's just like wailing on the Illuminati and like killing them in the most gruesome ways.
Yeah,
I was audibly just exclaiming. I was like, oh shit.
See, a couple things about that scene that I want to point out. That scene right there is the Xavier thing is so important. I love how they use Xavier, and I'll make a broader point about how they used all these characters in a second. But specifically with Xavier, it was so important to her character because in essence, the movie was able to protect the Wanda that we all love. You know, the Wanda that's trying to be an Avenger, trying to do the right thing. But we're actually seeing that she is just completely terrified. Like, Wanda is stuck. Wanda's gone because...
Right. Wanda's terrified of the Scarlet Witch.
And she can't... She's basically hidden away in it. And we don't know her. And I just love how they've built up that character. Because in Age of Ultron, she's a bad lady. In Age of Ultron, and in Civil War, she accidentally kills a bunch of people. Like, she's always kind of like not knowing how to control her powers, doesn't have a place in life. Like, she has had she's been trying to find a family this entire time. So I think it all works really good. Every
time she's about to find a family, it's taken away from her, basically.
Yeah, absolutely, which is it's a beautiful tragedy that I feel for, and I am very emotionally connected to. It worked really well. The greater point about that scene is probably why I liked this movie so much, where some people were disappointed. I think in the trailer, because I'd watched that first teaser, which I think was actually expertly done, because it made it look like Doctor Strange was going to be the fucking bad guy, which is so good.
Yes.
So good. I love that marketing. Keep doing that stuff. But I do think there are expectations, and we know how fans can get about crafting theories. And we've seen a little bit of Fox crossover from the X-Men, and this teased Xavier's voice. And I think a lot of people are wanting a Fox X-Men No Way Home situation with what we were hearing and the possibility of a multiverse. And that was my greatest fear. Like, I was like, I think if Marvel's going to do it, they'll do it to a good degree. But I was concerned. I was like, there's so many X-Men, and who do you focus on? And they're all old now. So, like, what are you going to do? And, like, you know, Cyclops is hanging out with Sonic the Hedgehog. So I just don't know how this is going to play out. So
if they do anything with that, I can tell you right now, it's probably going to be with the animated X-Men. Because I don't know if you guys are aware, but we have that new revival show, X-Men 97, coming out. And it's specifically Marvel Studios' X-Men 97. And the Charles Xavier in this movie is a live-action version of the Charles Xavier from that 90s cartoon.
Interesting.
So I don't think they're going to bring in any of the X-Men characters from those live-action films.
Well, they've done two. They've done two so far. They've brought in Quicksilver, and they've brought in Charles Xavier.
I think those are more like homages than the literal characters. But we'll see.
We'll see how that plays out, but I think if you wanted that and you really hyped yourself up for that, I can definitely...
Oh, you're super disappointed.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I was like scared, but confident that they would pull it off if they did it. And the fact that they bring in John Krasinski as the fucking Reed Richards and stuff, and he's like a fan cast of people, and
a fan cast, yeah,
so good. And then they're just like, you know,
honestly,
how we're gonna...
I was kind of like, he was doing nothing for me. I don't know if it was just what he had to do here, but
Brian, he was by himself in a room
with a costume that looked like they made the day of the shoot. Like they might have asked him to make it.
He was probably in a gray suit covered in ping pong balls. He probably didn't even have a real suit to work with, if I'm being totally honest.
Okay, we're running a bit long, but it's a great scene. I love what they do with it. This is my bet. Like, this was the unexpected. Oh, I can't believe they're doing this right now. I think it's the perfect way to have fun in Multiverse.
I just want to say, last point on that scene. I think the one thing that makes this worthwhile coming after No Way Home, they could have made the choice to make these characters drive the third act forward, and they didn't. And I really appreciated that.
Great choice.
The movie was working on its own, and they just went there, they did it, and moved past it.
I agree with you.
Yeah. Chris.
My favorite scene, hands down, is the Zombie Strange sequence.
Ooh, Chris, you took mine.
I'm sorry. This is when the movie goes full Raimi. The moment, oh my God, I almost fucking squealed in the theater when Doctor Strange was like, nobody said they had to be living. When he's about to dreamwalk into our MC world, I was like, yes. And then the fucking hand shoots up from the rooftop.
And it's all shaky. And
this whole sequence was so fucking awesome. This was the moment when I turned to our friend Danny Lopez in the theater, and I was like, this is so fucking rad. Like, this is rad as hell, dude. And then like summoning all the demon spawn and turning them into a cloak of levitation, and the way that they're like cackling at him and cackling at Christine and Wanda, like all of it is just so Evil Dead, Army of Darkness, Sam Raimi-esque. And I love that he was able to kind of sneak these little things into the film. The one laughable moment is that unfortunately Zombie Strange has to deliver this like really emotional speech.
Even better, because it makes how badly that speech is written.
True.
I mean, did you not have chills when he goes, "America, you can do it," and you're like, "Is he?" I think he's
to
talking
be honest,
to us.
dude. I say it's unfortunate, but I don't care. I was still like fully on board with everything that was taking place in this sequence. It was just so awesome.
And Ben, this is the best, and this is why I say, yo, you're letting a Shakespearean fucking trained actor that Benny Cumbybuns is. Okay, this is a master of his craft actor that just needs a really great paycheck, and I'm sure he's having a lot of fun. And he said he played Doctor Strange forever, and he's having fun with it. But he is a talent. And you get virtually none of it in the first Doctor Strange. In this movie, you get him dressed up as an undead Zombie Strange, and he basically dances around. It's beautiful. And he's incredible. Like, I would rewatch that 100 times because he's like twitching, and like there's so much work he's doing where you're like, that dude's a corpse. And guess what? That's not held up by CG. That's held up by acting. I mean, he's surrounded by a bunch of floating CG demons, but they're in 3D and it's super cool. Yeah, there's a moment. The cheesiest 3D scene is one of them goes, like that. I was like, okay,
the classic.
We gotta have one of them. Yeah, I agree with you, Chris. This is, and it's a great third act too. I think it's a wonderful like, and that's something Marvel films have problems with. So the fact is, great third act.
And honestly, that's one of the reasons why coming out of this movie, I was so hyped on it. You know, I thoroughly had a blast watching this movie because it ends on such a strong, well, it doesn't end on a strong point, but
it ends on the weirdest transition between two scenes I've ever seen in my life.
It's so horrible. But this sequence, at least, this third act kind of climactic battle between all the characters we've been following is so great that, this sequence was awesome.
Do you remember the end of Captain America, the first Avenger, and that movie, like, it straight up, to me, still looks very bad. Like, it's a bad looking movie stylistically.
Really?
Yeah, I don't like, because all the stuff they did with, the set dressing of the old times, they were using a lot more primitive. So I personally haven't seen that movie in maybe a couple of years, but every time I watch it, I go like, this movie just looks bad. Like,
really? I love that movie. I think it's like Indiana
I think it's
Jones.
A fine movie.
It's so much fun.
I think it's a fine movie, The First Avenger. I think it's a fine movie. I think it looks bad. That's two different things. Do you remember at the end of that, the stinger is him waking up in New York? And you're like, oh,
like
an actual
box.
Director shot this in New York City? And you're just like, oh fuck, I wish the whole movie looked as good as this. This movie's ending is the opposite, where clearly Raimi did not direct the last scene and had no say over it. And you're like, what the fuck is this doing in this movie? It's very jarring. It's very jarring. I think it's one of the worst transitions scene to post-credit scene that Marvel's ever had.
I will say it's tragic that we get this really awesome cliffhanger with him like collapsing in the street and his third eye prying itself open, and then immediately after he's walking down the street totally normal.
What baffling.
And then Clea's like, come with me, I have a mission for you. And then the eye's like, pew! And you're like, oh, he's already mastered it in the last 3 seconds, I suppose. And Clea kind of looks like a Power Ranger villain. I'm excited to see Clea in the films, but and Charlize Theron as well. But
for all they're doing visual,
it could have been handled more tactfully.
The eye looks terrible. It looked terrible in 3D. Maybe it looked better in 2D, but the eye never looked good. It literally looks just like a mask, like just straight mask that you put over in
just
After
taking
Effects.
one of Benedict Cumberbatch's eyes
Copy
and being
and
like,
paste. Yeah, clone. We used the clone tool, which is really crazy to me. That like everything looks so good. Why does that eye look fucking flat and dumb? And
yeah, but ending with the eye cracking open would have been like a great.
That's right.
Would have been like a great Sam Raimi ending.
Yeah. Because it's a Marvel movie, it can't be perfect, right?
Right.
I think I'll choose one more moment, and that's the multi-dimensional flying through scenes. Like visually, it's so and that's all I needed. Like some people are complaining, like for the multiverse of madness, this is really not allowed a multiverse. We're kind of just in two places. And like I agree. If you were like, but I wanted more madness and more multiverses. I'm like, in that scene, I got everything I needed from dimension hopping. I was like, any more, and I'd get sick to my stomach, just like Strange does.
Just like Doctor Strange.
Yeah. I'm glad they ended up in like future weird pizza ball multiverse.
Pizza Papa's got to get paid.
Pizza Papa's got to get paid. Yeah, I didn't realize that's an Evil Dead reference, him punching himself. I'd learned that from watching some other commentary, which is super great. Also completely goes against Doctor Strange's character. That took me out of it. And I think if I knew the Evil Dead thing, I would appreciate it more in the moment. But at the time, I was like, Doctor Strange, that was the most fucked up thing I've seen any superhero in the MCU do. Like, be vindictive and
torture this man. Yeah.
And that's, that kind of goes with what I was talking about earlier in our non-spoiler section, that I feel like the character of Doctor Strange has kind of lost his way in terms of writing over the course of these last 6 movies that he's been in. Because in the first Doctor Strange movies, one of the points that he makes is that he took an oath to not kill people, and he doesn't like killing people in that first Doctor Strange movie, and yet he's killed a lot of people since then. So I feel like that's something that's kind of just like left behind or unaddressed.
Who did he kill in this movie?
I mean, he's killed. He killed the big old Gigantos, the octopus monster. And
he killed. Well, it was a last resort. Like he could have done what he did way earlier, but at that point, he's like, "You're going to kill." No, he killed the tentacle monster.
Popped his eye out good.
What person
he
did he
threw the dark version of himself out of a top story window onto a spiked fence.
He said he would kill. First of all, he said he would do no harm to other people. Okay, he didn't say anything about killing another.
All right,
it's fine.
Nothing about himself. Okay.
I don't think.
And then there's this whole thing with his sister, and I do really like that moment where he mentions his sister Donna. I just don't think that moment is flushed out enough for it to mean as much as what Michael Waldron wants it to mean. And that's a really important part of the Doctor Strange character. So
see, I like when he comes in and we get the first conversation with what's his face, that one actor. Where I think he was from the first Doctor Strange. He's like one of the only holdovers from that first movie. Where he was like, yeah, he's like, could you have done something different? Like, and Strange's like, no, it's my only play. And the guy's literally like, yeah, I think he probably could have done something.
Oh, we're not talking about the same character. Yeah, the actor that plays the other Doctor in the first movie.
Yeah,
who's like, I lost 2 cats and a brother.
Yeah, I had heard. I want to say it's Next Best Picture, that show. I can't remember who brought it up, so I want to give them credit, but I think it was them. Maybe I should write these things down. But I believe they had mentioned, like, this is the first time we've heard anybody question Strange's decision, and Strange therefore has to talk about himself. And a lot of this movie is him reflecting on the reason that his lover has moved on. She's like, I couldn't I respected you for wanting to hold the knife. I just couldn't be with you for it. And that's a repeated motif of like Doctor Strange's decisions and him being so quick and decisive and not taking into account the community and what other people's input.
Right.
He's kind of making these decisions, and is that what's best for everybody involved?
Right. And that plays into him at the end, having America Chavez do it herself instead of stealing her powers and doing it himself.
Kid. America.
And the tragedy of this movie is that this question is asked at the very beginning is like, were there any other options? And based on what we heard in Infinity War, we didn't think there was. There was only one universe in which they won, right? But as we find out in Earth 838, their Doctor Strange just used the Darkhold to kill Thanos and then ended up sacrificing himself. So, I mean, there clearly were alternatives to defeating Thanos. I don't know how they can fix that narratively, or if they even care to. But
I don't think they care to. And if I'm going to put my money down, I do not think the Infinity style buildup that they want to do for Phase 4 and continuing will have much to do with the multiverse.
You don't think it will?
Mm-mm.
Interesting.
No, not directly. It may.
Why do you think that? Because I think they're building to a huge multiversal conflict.
Well, what is it? What's the touch point in the Galactus? Right. That's the next. What's the next biggest threat?
Secret Wars.
In
which all these planets and universes collide against one another to create like this giant battle world type thing. Like the incursions that they mention in this movie are when two universes start to collide in on one another, and one universe in the comic books has to figure out how to conquer the other universe to be the surviving universe. Because if not, both universes will be destroyed. So they're, just by mentioning incursions in this film, I think Kevin Feige's clear path is he wants the Russo brothers to come back and direct a Secret Wars movie.
I would think that they would follow this thread through. If they do like that plot line, that would be Doctor Strange 3, right? And you actually settle that. Similar to Civil War, because I don't think because they really want to build up and introduce like a big bad or like a nemesis, and by two universes, then you're having to like, I feel like that's a bit too messy for the cinematic universe.
We'll see,
I think they'll handle
I agree with you that I think
the same way they did Civil War.
I agree with you that I think it's going to be a little messy, and I think we're going to lose the general audience along the way. I don't think it's going to be as clean as the Infinity Saga was, but I can tell you right now, based on all the breadcrumbs that they're leaving, based on what we saw in Loki with Kang, who has multiple variants, I think Kang is probably our Thanos in this coming saga.
Interesting.
But
yeah,
we'll see what happens.
I would figure they actually resolve the multiverse thing relatively soon, and then we move into something else. But I'm not as big of a comic book nerd. I just see it being problematic to do your two, because you may remember if they repeat the same method, we're like 23 films away from the next Endgame. Yeah. And for how fast they've introduced all these things, I just don't see that being the end point. I see it being Doctor Strange 3. You know what I mean? Like, I see that being a bump in the road. We're going to keep it small and it'll be a big cast and everything, but it won't be all of our heroes that we built up. I'm thinking probably this American Chavez girl and everybody is like Young Avengers. I think Young Avengers.
Disney Plus. It'll be a Disney Plus show for them.
You think has it been confirmed that that's what it's going to be?
No, I'm just speculating.
I think they're going to try to do Young Avengers as a big screen, baby. Because they prove that they can make these characters important, right? All right, we've already gone too long, longer than I wanted to. I said 30 minutes. We're at an hour. Chris, let's wrap things up with community feedback.
Welcome back to the community feedback section, loyal listeners and viewers. In this section, we take care of some housekeeping for the Pop-O-Holics, in which we talk about our upcoming Throwback Thursday episode. We talk about any poll results that we have. And then, of course, if you've left us a 5-star written review on either Spotify or the Apple Podcast app, we will read them here in this section. Considering that we don't have either of the latter two things, we're only going to talk about our Throwback Thursday episode here. this upcoming Thursday on youtube.com/Pop-O-Holics, we will be re-releasing a bonus episode that Brian and I did. We're still in 2019, roughly, I believe, right? Going into 2020, maybe. But we had the great James Barnes from C4S Villains on the podcast, and we basically broke down and gushed over Sean Murphy's Batman the White Knight, which is a great Batman Elseworlds story. I've talked about it multiple times here on the podcast. Highly recommend it if you haven't read it already. But to hear our thoughts and James's thoughts, head on over to our YouTube channel this Thursday and check out that episode. And Brian, do you have anything to add about that episode?
Only that it was, as usual, always a pleasure to have James on, and I need to catch up on the sequel comic to this so that I can start reading the end of the trilogy. The
currently running Batman Beyond the White Knight, which I have to say I haven't talked about it here on the podcast, but it's great so far.
Oh, awesome. But yeah, no, that's definitely a worthwhile read, and I'm sure a great episode to come back to.
Got a lot of cats. Different Batman.
Christian, where else can our loyal listeners and viewers find us online?
You can find us. We've got a link tree, both in the audio feed and the YouTube just video description down below. Yeah, that's right, Brian. Right direction. And that'll take you to all our social medias. We're very active on Twitter. That's where we do our polls. We do a poll basically like every month or so around our theme that we have. You can email us at popoholicscast@gmail.com. Again, that's also in Linktree. So please reach out to us via email. We love hearing from our listeners. What do you want us to cover? What are your thoughts on Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness? Where do you think the MCU is going? We love to read all of it, and we'll talk about it in this section. That's what it's for, this little section in here. Rate us 5 stars on your favorite podcast player of choice. And you can find me personally at Midnight Satire. Chris, where can people find more of your work?
You can find me on Twitter at Chris Conkling, talking about all things nerdy.
Video games, movies, collectibles, you name it, he's talking about it.
Yeah.
That was close. And you can find me at True Pop-O-Holic,
where if there's things that are true, things that are Pop-O-Holic, he's going to be talking about it.
Also, dad jokes galore.
Yeah.
If it's daddy, he's joking about it.
True Pop Daddy. Hey, listen, there's only one daddy. There's only one daddy on the show right now, baby. Hey, big dad pants.
Apparently father to a Jello child. To earlier comments.
Parent.
Plucked right from a different multiverse.
It's pretty fresh, right, Brian? Caught that, didn't you?
Yeah.
Announcement, boys. My EP, Augmented Reality, is streaming now. So go check that out. It is streaming now. I'll probably put like a bumper in the audio podcast.
That's great.
Yes. I'll probably talk about it a lot more. The music video that you gentlemen helped me film is also releasing. You know, the scheduling has been all over the place, so it'll probably be out by this time. There's actually a secret place where you can actually play it right now.
I saw it today.
.bandcamp.com.
What?
Yeah, I watched it today.
Yeah, there's a secret place where you can find it. midnightsatire.bandcamp.com for our Pop-O-Holics early sneak peek there. But it will be officially released on YouTube later. Very cool, gentlemen. We're talking about Nick Cage all month on our main topic feed. So we'll be continuing with Nick Cage month with Raising Arizona. All that and more next time on Pop.